welcome or welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, welcome. So glad to have you here. My name is Kat. On here we talk about style, fashion, shopping, life, stuff like that. Today, I'm attempting Vlogmas. So in order to make this at all plausible, we are starting off a little bit before Thanksgiving. So I'm gonna do Thanksgiving stuff. But anyway, I am just getting ready here this morning and grabbing some food. So figured I'd show you a tiny bit of that. And then we're gonna launch into it because I think you may have clicked on this based on the title. So we're going to address that first. And then you're just gonna follow me around while we do things that are just so aesthetic. You know, it's gonna be so aesthetic. Starting off with this ripe banana. I've been having a banana and a Costco croissant every day. Look at that tasty Costco croissant. I am gonna heat it up in the microwave, so, you know, probably going to take years off of my life or whatever. If that happens, it's because I got really obsessed with eating croissants and putting them in the microwave. Sorry, everybody. My husband heats them up in the oven because he's a civilized person, but not for me. So perhaps you've clicked on this video because you like me and you like the holidays and you're like, ooh, she's doing Vlogmas. Or perhaps you clicked on this video because of the title. And that is going to be a big through line throughout this. So while I'm super excited to do lots of holiday stuff and bring you along for that, I am also filling out paperwork that I have had in my possession for an embarrassingly long time now. It has taken me a long time to initiate this task, which I guess if you know, you know. I think there's real irony to someone wanting to seek a diagnosis that impacts executive function. So the ability to initiate a task or do something with multiple steps on a timeline, do something timely, give them paperwork and be like, hey, execute this big task. If you struggle with that, you may not do great with that. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I just wanted to be a bit more clear about this journey to seek a diagnosis specifically, and I'm sure it says this in the title, but specifically for autism. But I don't know for sure if there's more going on or not. To give you the quickest little rundown in terms of, and I'll talk about this more later. Since my teenage years, I've been pretty confident that I have OCD. It's not to say that it hasn't impacted my life to the point that I would need to get a diagnosis. There have been times that I've thought about it, but even, now as a full grown adult trying to get this diagnosis, the thing that I said about executive functioning, it can be really hard for me to go from that moment of, oh, I wonder, like I should reach out to a professional about this and, confirm if my suspicions are correct. And then the actual execution of that is like rolling up a hill. Like it can be very, very difficult. Some things I can get done extremely quickly and other things I may never get to them. And that was kind of the experience with OCD. There was never like a moment where I felt like, I can't leave the house. Like I understand sometimes there's something like that is the catalyst for people where, they can no longer drive over this bridge or something like that. And it becomes limiting to the point that they have to seek care. I've never had a moment like that. But I have always related to the diagnostic criteria for OCD. And it wasn't until more recently, in the past 5 years, that I realized that there was a great deal of overlap with those symptoms and with the diagnostic criteria for autism. And that the traits associated with an autistic neurotype could present like OCD. And it has really gotten me wondering, which is why I want the diagnosis primarily. I have heard so many people online talk about their reasons, and any reason's valid, of course. And so I'm not meaning to compare in any way, just meaning to add my experience to the mix of it all, in case it's helpful or interesting to you. What am I talking about? I also have had a lot of people in my life get diagnosed with ADHD or are suspecting that and seeking a diagnosis. It seems to be everyone I know. And so I understand that in an assessment like this, you get evaluated for lots of things that could present similarly or that could both be true for you. And so, just to put you on the edge of your seats, I am not sure. I have diagnosed myself in the past very successfully with several different health, like medical, related things. So I think I'm pretty good, at, like Dr. Google and we're like this. JK, I just understand how to read a sentence and then bring it to someone who knows more than me. But, so here you sit with me in I call it my cloffice. Because that's what it is. It's a cloffice. And so here we are, my closet office, my cloffice. And I think that what you see behind me, like all of this is a very good visual representation of what it is to be me. Lots of really nice things, that end up in piles that I don't want them to be in. And so that's a good metaphor for what it can be like. And with that in mind, that is why I am seeking an autism diagnosis. As soon as I started learning more about it, which I'll tell you the story about why I started learning about it later. It's a very classic one. But as soon as I started learning about it, I resonated with so many of the things. I've had many autistic friends, but as I know, the saying goes, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And that's really been my experience. The similarities between people I know have been pretty loose. Like the types of things that you might associate with someone coming from the exact same block, like where it's like, sure, they have some similar reference points because they lived on the same street, but like I couldn't pick out other people in the world that lived on that street. To me, it was kind of like that. And so I think that I had an understanding of their individual experiences and what they had shared. But it didn't connect in my mind. Like I didn't see much of a pattern between people that I knew, again, beyond something where it's like, oh, you come from the same neighborhood. You have like some similar reference points. You have some similar stuff, but there's no, like if you're not super familiar with this, like there's not a thing, like there's not a specific thing that you can be like, that person is, that person isn't. It's because it's genuinely a brain structure thing. So like you can't tell that from looking at someone, from talking to someone. And there are patterns, but the pattern, and gosh, I say this all the time in real life, I'm going to start saying it on here. The pattern is bigger than you think it is. And this is one where I saw like the smallest version of the pattern and then zoomed out. And there's this whole like crazy quilt of a pattern that then I realized I fit into it very solidly. But I am interested in sharing it with you as we go. And since I already have a history of vlogging on this channel, I figured they could fit in kind of nicely just as a little content pillar point. The past few years have been quite the roller coaster of self-discovery. This is also kind of a topic for another time because it's a very big topic. But this experience of, I feel like I have relatively good insight. Like I think I know myself relatively well. I can predict how I'm going to feel. I kind of know why I'm thinking the thing that I'm thinking. Like I know what connects to what to a relatively good degree. And this is the first time in my life that I have had a thing happen to me, which is considering that I might be neurodivergent, where I look back at everything in my life and reconsider all of it. It is the biggest, most literal paradigm shift of all time. Like when I think of the phrase paradigm shift, I don't think that you could define it better than by using this example in my life. It changes everything in a weird kind of way. Like nothing changes, but it redefines everything, I guess, which is both helpful and somewhat overwhelming. And that is part of why I want to bring you along on the journey, both because you might be going through something similar. Hopefully it can be helpful. I found other people's experience online to be extremely helpful, both in terms of actually what the experience is like of getting an assessment and that kind of thing, but more so just hearing about their experiences and their processing of daily life and their diagnosis and like all of this. And so if I can be that help to someone else, that would be really cool. I would feel really proud of that. I also think that, let me just say, I've thought about this a long time. I've thought about saying this to you for a long time. And it's always been something where I didn't want to speak to something if I wasn't going to get the diagnosis. I just kind of always thought that I could inject some of my experience into vlogging, into my online presence, and you might pick up on it, you might not. But also, I feel like I cannot be silent about it. I have never been one for like coming out. There are a few things about me, like about my identity, that you wouldn't know from looking at me, but do put me in more minority groups. And I don't like that we announce that. I think it's great when someone does, to be clear. Like I would never stop someone, and I will celebrate you every day for the rest of time. If you want to share something about your identity, I'm here for it. I am hearing you and I love it. It's not for me. I'm an extremely private person, which is really wacky that I'm vlogging on the internet, but it feels different. For whatever reason. Just to say, I'm a quite private person. And I am not one to come out in that way. Again, I think it's great if people do. But that's not been something that I have ever felt compelled to do until this. And so much of it is like current societal opinions. And I really do think that it is very important for purposes of representation, I guess. And with that, I want to be so clear, like I speak for myself, I speak from my own experience. But I think that the more that we can see the diversity of experience and hear from people, the better understanding we can have overall as a society. And things are weird right now politically, and autism has been talked about a suspicious amount. And I am all for researching things, making people's lives better, making things easier, more comfortable for people, having greater understanding. That's a huge one for me. I think that the more that we can know, the better. And so I think that it's good in that sense that there has been a spotlight turned to this. But I think that there are a lot of layers to the politicization of autism that I perceive to be happening. that I think could have far-reaching effects that are extremely negative in the long term. And I guess I want to combat that. One of the things that bothers me the most in this life is that I only get to live one life. I would love to do so many different things. I would love to be so many different versions of myself and try so many things. And I think sometimes when you see vlogging, you get to be there with them. You get to try that on a little bit. And I find that just so fascinating. And so from the moment that I started vlogging, it's been years ago now, the end game was always this. And I have been sort of scared to integrate this for years. My arm hurts from holding this. I'm going to set you here. We've got a little stand. There's my belts and a hat. I've got more hats. I'm going to put them like up around. There's like more wall that would be filled with more hats. So yes, it has always been in the back of my mind that I would do this series. And I guess I've put it off for years. I was sort of afraid. And it's not that I'm not afraid anymore. I think I'm more afraid. I think that I'm very concerned, I guess, about public opinion, public perception. I feel like it would be irresponsible, I guess, at this point to, not that I am remaining silent, but because I've always kind of referenced things. So if you picked up on it, then you picked up on it. But I was never super clear. But I felt like if I didn't do this series now, I would always regret it. And so I'm doing it. What was that? I feel like my ring light is going to come attack me. It's a little bizarre. Anyway, if Vlogmas stops short, I've been kidnapped by my ring light. If you're tuning in for this series, I plan on, it is Vlogmas after all, so I plan on bringing you along for some of that holiday stuff, hanging out, all that. And then I also plan on sitting down and chatting on occasion about my thoughts, what led me to start seeking a diagnosis, and I'm going to take you along for the process. I have to fill out a lot of paperwork. I have been keeping notes again for years now, so I have plenty to share with them about why I think this is true for me. But yeah, I have to fill out this paperwork, and then I think at that point I'll still be placed on a waiting list. So you'll have to wait to find out. But the suspense, am I right? Is it just autism? Is it more? I don't know. It's trippy. Life is trippy. And at any moment, you could look back and be like, oh my gosh, all of this means something different than I thought it did, which is just so wild. But anyway, so if you know a ton about this, you're so welcome here. If you know absolutely nothing about this, you're so welcome here. If you only want to watch the holiday stuff, I'll leave chapters below, so you can check that out. If you're mostly here for this, though, is really the point. If you're mostly here for this kind of discussion, watching my journey, filling out the paperwork, I will share some of the, just like my tips, my experience with it, in case it is something that you are looking into for yourself or for a family member or something like that. I will leave chapter markers in case you want to just jump to that, but I'm pretty fun. Like, I drink coffee at night and pile things up in my house. So like, what's not to love? You know what I mean? Anyway, thanks for chatting. Little lunch break is over. Going back to work now. And yeah, I'll catch up with you once work is done. Hopefully at a reasonable time, which it will be sad because it will be dark outside when work is done. And I don't like that. I don't like that. It would be interesting to genuinely like that. I wonder if there's people out there that are like, good, the darkness. Like, I believe that there are people. That'd be kind of cool, honestly. It's sort of like, I just never want the sun to set. My husband does not like this opinion. I wish we did not have to sleep. If I could remove something from the human experience, 100% it would be sleep. I would not have us being sleep deprived. And I would actually even take sort of like a hit to our ability to function. That's a bad deal that I'm signing up for, because I think I already sometimes struggle, but like maybe we wouldn't be as awake as we are when you get like a good night of rest. But what if you just never had to sleep? You had an additional, not 5 to 9 hours to do stuff. Wouldn't that be cool? And again, like, you wouldn't be like walking around like a total zombie. You would be rested enough. How amazing. Like 6, 7 hours for sure of extra time? That'd be so great. You would miss out on the reset though. And I use the reset a lot. Sometimes I'll feel like my day is completely ruined, which is a thing. And there is a reset. Anyway, you didn't ask about that either. Okay, great. Okay, checking in again. The workday is over, and I just sort of wanted to stop in here and chat about this experience that I have that now I am wondering, like, is this a neurodivergence thing? Because before I just sort of accepted it, like, well, that's just how life works, which is the case with a lot of these things that I think I'll bring up. But this one, I think that it falls into the category of, if you've heard the phrase autistic inertia, this idea that it can be really hard to initiate a task, and it can also be really difficult to task switch. So you can end up stuck doing a thing or stuck doing nothing. And today I felt like I was battling at every turn this task initiation. It's funny because it's the kind of thing, like, as an adult, that you don't really think about being a skill set, yet it is. And so today, like, I got the most important things done, but sometimes it just feels like pushing against a brick wall, trying to get things done and be productive. And, you know, for what it's worth, like, you know, capitalism and productivity and self-worth and all of that, like, is this, you know, terrible web? And I agree. But I do really like feeling productive. And productive, it does not have to be defined in this capitalistic sense, right? Like, productive to me can mean like getting into like a state of flow, or being focused on something, or, you know, knocking things off the to-do list that would otherwise weigh on my mind. And being able to do those things is great. And I just don't always have the capacity to do that. And I think in the past, I was a lot better maybe at doing something else and therefore feeling like I'd gotten stuff done. Sorry, I have a cold. But yeah, like I think that I have several really high priority things in my life at the moment, and it makes it hard to prioritize on the daily. And with that, I don't want to just end up reorganizing the spice cabinet when I need to feed the baby. And so during the day, I have a corporate job and I focus on that. And there's a fair amount of prioritization that goes into that. And I feel like it drains all of my prioritization skills. So then when it comes to this time during the day, even though it is getting towards the holidays and it's fun and I like this time and there are so many things that I want to do, yet after a day of having to really prioritize and focus on that, I just feel like I'm done with it. Like recently I've noticed that I can have one really productive day and then the next day is an absolute waste in that sense. And sometimes in the sense of like, I don't even feel relaxed necessarily. Like, it's not like I'm doing like the minimum and recharging. Like, I'm not recharging. I'm just not doing anything. It makes it hard to take care of myself. It makes it hard to get those bare minimum things done for work and life. And it is a struggle for sure. Like, if you're familiar with spoon theory, this is like the example in my life that I feel resonates the most with that concept. And it's really genuinely very difficult. Yeah, I would just love to, because some of it's like waxing and waning energy levels kind of, but so much of it is focus. Like, it's the ability to focus and execute things and take care of myself and stuff like that. Like, it feels insurmountable. And it shouldn't, because on some days it just doesn't, and on others it really does. And it feels like I'm constantly on the verge of burnout. I realize now that I have pretty much always felt that way, since middle school, probably, just because I think I have a bad combo of things, actually. I get bored with things pretty easily, and so then I add too many things, and then sometimes I struggle to get the bare minimum done, but then I've added all these things to my social calendar, to my work, and it makes it very hard to execute. I have heard people talk about autism in the sense of having spiky skill sets, which is also very true for me. I think the example that is true about me, which this is a wild thing to say on the internet, but I guess this is what I've signed myself up for. Like, a good example of a spiky skill set for me was that I started Montessori school when I was about 2. And I remember learning to read there, but I already knew how to read. Like, somehow I had picked this up and had this really strong skill set in that area, and just, yeah, like, read really early. However, I tied my shoes so late. I also learned to ride a bike really late. And so when we say spiky skill set, my understanding is that that is a great example. That for me, language, like, and I also spoke early, though, like, I said words early, I guess, and then didn't speak for a while, and then just started speaking in full sentences again early, and in this sort of like odd kind of way. So I think that my language processing just came faster than like my caregivers. Look at how good my language is, you guys. I'm a savant. But I guess language came really easily to me and early on, whereas being able to do those more like complex physical processes did not, which I was always like, relatively coordinated in like the sports kind of way, but not in the like riding a bike kind of way. Language came really easily. Tying my shoes did not. In fact, maybe they still have this, but for sure in the 90s, if you were there in the 90s, there was such a moment with these shoelaces that were like a curly cue. They were like tightly coiled, and it was, what is this? It was like elastic, and you would just, put it through like a normal shoelace, but it remained taut. Like, it remained, tied where you want it. So you would just like pull the coils through. Think of like, this is another thing, dating myself, but like, think of like the home phone that was attached to the cord, right? How like the cord is really, the spirals. It was like that. So you just like pull the different spirals through, and then it would keep your shoe on at that point. This is a wild description. Thanks for being here for this. Anyway, I remember I was like 8 maybe, and I remember we had some like, I don't know why I think these are related. Maybe they're not, but it was like jump rope for heart health, and this was happening at elementary school, and you could buy these shoelaces weird tie-in, but whatever. And I remember I bought several pairs of these shoelaces because they were the coolest thing ever. And they were like rainbow and like, oh my gosh, they were so cool. And I remember as like an 8-year-old being like, these are so cool. These are so on trend. I am so cool when I wear these. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, and it's so nice that I don't have to tie my shoes. And what a funny memory, right? Like this spiky skill set. I still experience this where like there are moments where everything's going really well. I'm getting tons of things done. And then there are other times where it's just not going to happen. And with executive functioning, planning things out, getting things done in a day, I still really struggle with that. And today was just a struggle day. I'm hoping that having this quick chat with you will be a good reset. Another thing as well that I will say in here, I have been trying something like playing transitional songs in between things, like when, if I'm going to lunch. Sometimes I have a hard time stopping working and going to lunch. And so, and that results in me skipping lunch or like working through lunch a lot. And that is not... It's not necessary. Sometimes it is necessary, but like sometimes it's just not ideal. And I find that if I play a song and like when that song is over, I have to get up and go. I find things like that to be really helpful. And I think that could be helpful for neurotypical people as well. I think that sometimes just having like a cue like that, a little moment where you reassess is very nice. But I'm hoping that this little chat with you right now might do that for me for tonight. I also need to make like a little intro for this. I want there to be a different intro, which I mean, I need a different intro anyway, because my intro is not the best. I like it. I think it's cool. But it's not the best. Anyway, what was that? Okay, here I go.